The American flag is set on fire as Japanese protesters demand the closure of the U.S. military base in Okinawa, weeks after the abduction and rape of a 12-year-old girl by 3 U.S. servicemen. October 22. Dance marathon last for couples standing in a Chicago dance marathon. 1930, it's worth noting, this was taken around 1930, right near the beginning of the Depression. These people were desperate for money for any kind, and the well-off paid admission fees to watch these marathons, making it kind of a demented spectator sport. The whole thing was, in retrospect, incredibly cruel. F-4U Corsair plane. Natives admiring an American Air Force F-4U Corsair plane somewhere in the Pacific of 1943. When they first met the Americans, they thought they were from the heavens and treated them as gods. Defending their property. 2 Business owners preparing to defend their property. El-Dada riots, 1992. Immigrants. Chinese immigrant family, Oregon, USA, 1890s. First day of school. The first day of school, Portugal, 1936. Bradford City Stadium fire. Main stand engulfed in flames in the Bradford City Stadium fire, which killed 56 people, May 11, 1985. The dilapidated wooden stand was due for demolition before the Saturday match against Lincoln City. A discarded cigarette, which apparently fell through the floorboards, set fire to litter and debris below the stand. A fire was first noticed at 3:40 p.m., but the windy conditions meant the entire stand was on fire within 4 minutes. 265 were injured and 56 were killed, many of whom were either under 20 or over 70. Beggar. A beggar running alongside King George V's coach. England, 1920. Survivor. An injured survivor of the Hindenburg disaster smokes a cigarette as he is moved to a hospital from the field at Lakehurst, New Jersey, May 6, 1937. Woodstock. 2 Festival goers that found Woodstock too much lie passed out on their Volkswagen Beetle, 1969. Pablo Escobar. Notorious drug lord Pablo Escobar and his son in front of the White House. 1980s. Escobar's ruthlessness was legendary. His rise was opposed by many honest politicians, judges and policemen who did not like the growing influence of this street thug. Mrs. Robert Kennedy. Ethel Kennedy tries to comfort her husband Robert Kennedy as he lays mortally wounded on the floor in the kitchen at the Ambassador Hotel. June 6, 1968. German embassy. The German embassy in Sweden flying the flag at half-mast on April 30, 1945, the day Hitler died. In Ireland, de Valera visited the German embassy in Dublin to sign a book of condolences for the departed Führer. Rudolf Höss, the commandant of the Auschwitz concentration camp, is hanged next to the crematorium at the camp on April 16, 1947. His defense is a really special type of dark humor. To the end, he contended that, at the most, 1.5 million people had died at Auschwitz, not 5 or 6 million. Nelson Mandela keeps his fist raised after he was sentenced to life imprisonment, June 1964. White House reporters dash for the telephones after they had been told by Presidential Press Secretary Stephen T. Early, the Japanese submarines and planes had just bombed the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. New York skyline, early 1970s. Tomb of Napoleon. Adolf Hitler visits the Tomb of Napoleon at Les Invalides, Paris, France, 1940. Kidnapped children. 41 Kidnapped children recovered from ship in open seas, 1904. Kidnapped girls were found hidden in a junk by customs inspector. These girls would have been sold for slaves. The selling of children into a life of servitude was not uncommon in China, as slaves were owned by many wealthy families. Priscilla nuclear test. The Priscilla nuclear test detonation during Operation Plumbob. A series of nuclear tests were conducted between May 28 and October 7, 1957. The fireball is about a half-mile in diameter. So while it is hard to estimate the distance, they seem to be at least 4 or 5 miles away. Umberto II. Italy's last king, Umberto II, reigned from May 9, 1946 to June 18, 1946. This is a picture of him dressed as a little courtier in 1907, when he was 3 years old. Winston Churchill with his daughter Mary, London, 1943. Muhammad Ali dodges a punch from Joe Frazier at the fight of the century, March 8, 1971. Leningrad. A mural of Lenin towers over a Leningrad square, 1971. This looks like an art piece until you look at people walking at the bottom. Babe Ruth lying unconscious after running into a wall chasing a fly ball. He would regain consciousness 5 minutes later and get 2 more hits in the game. July 5, 1924.